In the last video, I spoke about data networks that use broadband connections in order to provide fast and reliable access to the internet. Now they form this infrastructure, which I'm going to talk about the infrastructure that connects billions of users to the global internet. Right. So broadband technology is this high-speed data transmission technology that provides you continuous access or always-on connectivity to the internet. And the way it does that is that it uses a wide range of frequencies in order to have this 24/7 connection or connectivity to the internet. Now, broadband itself is the term of or essentially means broad bandwidth, and that tells us that big data or large amounts of information or volumes of data can be transmitted simultaneously over a communication network or medium. Now you will realize as I go on that I will, contrasting broadband technology with all communication systems, and one in particular is dial-up systems. Now, those all communication systems, they used a narrow bandwidth in order to transmit, or they could only carry one signal at a time. But broadband, on the other hand, since it uses a wide frequency spectrum, it can transmit like multiple signals or large volumes of data at very high speed. Now, broadband or broad bandwidth communication works as follows, right? First, you need to understand what is bandwidth. Remember that any communication network or any communication channel has a certain capacity in order to transmit data. Now, that capacity is the the bandwidth that I'm talking about. So this bandwidth is usually measurable, and it's measurable in bits per second. Those bits per second can be kilobits per second. It can be megabits per second. It can be terabits per second. Um, in special cases, excuse me, in special cases. Now, the broader the bandwidth, that means more information can essentially flow through the communication network, right? And the reason why it's called broad bandwidth lies in the fact that, or in technical terms, that it uses broadband technologies. They use a wide range of frequencies in order to carry signals. Now, when you have a broad frequency or a broader frequency, that means you can transmit information simultaneously. Um, that information can be text, voice, video, or data itself. All of that can be transmitted like simultaneously, and you can also um, enable or allow or have high data rates or high data transfer rates because of broader frequency. And beyond that, this reduce congestion over the communication network and improve performance for multiple users. So it is it is scalable in that regard. So that's why broad frequencies are important. Now, in order to put this into context and understand it better, you need to contrast, broadband versus narrowband systems like your old dial-up systems. And I've said that they can, transmit only limited data at slow speed. Those are your narrow bandwidth systems, like old dial-up systems. And broadband, on the other hand, can transmit huge volumes of information, and that allows like fast and reliable data transmission. So when you're contrasting or putting broadband with narrowband on side by side, you can think of like a single lane road um, versus a multi-lane highway. So in this regard, the multi-lane highway would be broadband, and on the other hand, the narrowband system would be, um, the single-lane road. So the multi-lane highway essentially allows, many vehicles, or in this case, those vehicles are taken to be data packets. It means those data packets can travel all at the same time at very high speed, right? Now, there's these two properties of broadband technology, and those two properties, which are broadband principles, are your high speed connection and always on connectivity. right? Now, the way high-speed connection works is that, oh, first of all, you need to realize that broadband actually provides significantly higher speeds than your traditional dial-up technology, which was used in the past. And your typical broadband speed would range somewhere like, but it depends on the broadband technology. For DSL, I'm gonna explain what DSL is. It's a broadband technology. For DSL, you have speeds that range from around 5 megabits per second all the way to 100 megabits per second, depending on the type of DSL technology or DSL lines, right? And your cable internet would have speeds of around, let's say, 10 megabits per second, all the way to 1,000 megabits per second or 1 gigabits per second. Then there's fiber internet as well, which ranges from like 100 megabits per second all the way to more than like 10 gigabits per second. So it can exceed 10 gigabits per second, which, by the way, fiber network is by far the most advanced or the fastest internet access. It has the highest speed, and it can only like be surpassed by Starlink. Now, there's also your wireless broadband, like your 4G, your 5G, and satellite internet. So your 4G, your 5G would range from your speeds between 5 megabits per no, from tens of megabits per second to hundreds of megabits per second. So those are the typical speeds, and these speeds they really matter because they allow users to to do various things, to stream HD videos online or 4K videos online, to participate in video conferences, to download large files quickly because of these speeds, and also play online games, use cloud services like your AWS, your Microsoft Azure, and including, operating IoT devices or running them simultaneously. So this high-speed capability of broadband technology is really, really important for modern communication system because all the digital applications that I've mentioned, you're downloading, large files or streaming or using cloud services, all those digital applications, they require large amounts of data to be transmitted quickly. And then there is the side of 24/7 connectivity, aka or also known as always on connection of broadband technology. So this is one of the key features of broadband because broadband actually is continuously connected to the internet. It is not your device that's continuously connected to the internet, right? But it is rather the broadband technology, the infrastructure of broadband, or which delivers broadband that's continuously connected to the internet. So it's not like your old dial-up systems, right? So with broadband, there is no need for manual connection each time there is a disconnection, right? You don't need to manually connect. You don't need to wait for a connection tone like in your old dial-up system, and you can look uh, this up online. You when you and try to understand how dial-up systems work, there was this you know connection tone, or this weird connection tone, and you had to wait for it to for the connection to be established. um, so there's no need to wait for that connection to be established. And in terms of phone services, with broadband, there's fewer interruption, or there's no interruptions of phone services, rather, compared to dial-up system. So in most broadband technologies, you can. It doesn't mean that if you use the internet, you can't use your computer, your device for other things, right? There isn't any interruption of phone services with broadband technology. So it's not the same as your old dial-up systems. So broadband um, it just uses this dedicated infrastructure, your fiber, your cable internet, your DSL lines, your wireless systems, in order to keep users connected to the internet 24/7, right? And that enables, you know, a number of things. First of all, you that means you have instant access to the to online services. Doesn't matter with online services, they differ. For businesses it's different, for individuals it's different. but you have instant online services because of this 24/7 connectivity. Not only that, there is um, IoT or yeah, it's IoT devices that are the functionality like of smart devices, like your smart TV, your smart watches, and even remote monitoring of those smart devices. Let's say in a factory or in an airplane, or monitoring sensors from at a distance. That works because of this 24/7 connectivity, right? And you have real time updates or notification because of this 24/7 connectivity. You're using broadband technology. That's why you get real time notification and continuous updates as well. So this property of broadband of always on connectivity is really really important for modern businesses. Uh, every business needs to be connected to the internet 24/7. It's important for homes. It's important for mobile network users as well, right? So since we're contrasting broadband versus old dial-up systems, it's actually faster than dial-up. And what makes it faster is that um, dial-up systems, the way that it worked, it's used standard telephone lines. So you would dial up the number and wait for that connection to ring, and then the connection would be established. That's how dial-up system worked. It was an earliest form of internet access back in the 90s. Um, how it also had like modems, um, which were built in the system, and they were used to convert digital signals into your analog signals. So the way that dial-up system worked is similar to how you make a phone call. Just dial a number, wait for it rings, and then you wait for someone to pick up. That's how dial-up net or internet access worked back in the day. And when you talk about dial-up speed or internet um, speed or high or data rate, it was very very slow. So dial-up speeds were typically around the maximum would be 56 kilobits a second. Think about that, 56 kilobits a second. That's very slow. That's the maximum, right? So it gets speeds of around about 14 kilobits per second, 20 kilobits per second, 10 kilobits per second. So that's very slow, which implies that it had serious limitation, a number of limitations. Number one, the data rates, which I've just mentioned, were very, very slow, right? And the telephone line, since it, it depended on standard telephone lines, the telephone line would be, occupied over time, and you get like frequent disconnections. So it was a problem. And high latency as well. There's a lot of delay, and so essentially, uh, those dial-up systems or the dial-up internet compared to broadband would not or was not suitable at all for like streaming services or making or like downloading large files, right? So imagine you downloading just just a 10 megabytes file, right? Just 10 megabytes, and you compare the speeds of broadband versus dial-up, right? Broadband would only take a few seconds to download the same file, right? But on the other hand, dial-up would take like 20 to 30 minutes. That's how slow it is. All right. So it would never work. It was like streaming services was nearly impossible for dial-up because the data rate was simply too slow. Right. Now the technical advantages of or key points of broadband compared to uh, dial-up, the old dial-up systems, were actually or the strengths of broadband technologies. And one that the ones that you have to consider is the bandwidth. Uh, Broadband had higher bandwidth compared to dial-up systems, that which means that you can transmit uh, data streams simultaneously, right? It supports simultaneous uh, transmission of data streams, right? That's what it means if it has a higher bandwidth compared to dial-up systems. And then it's not like your analog dial-up systems. Broadband is packet-based or digital transmission technology, right? So data is transmitted as packets, unlike analog dial-up signals, right? And in terms of latency, broadband has low latency, which means there is reduced delay in communication, and that's important for streaming services. It's important for online gaming. It's important for video conferencing as well, and scalability. Scalability is what surpasses or what highlights the strength of broadband, because broadband actually supports an increasing number of users and also high speeds, right? So those are the technical advantages. Now, the part that I want to talk about is the types of broadband technologies, which will be highlighted more like in detail in the next videos. But there are several technologies that deliver broadband, and these are the technologies that I will be talking about in the next video. I've spoken about DSL, which is your digital subscriber line, and that uses your standard telephone lines without interfering with voice communication or voice calls. And then you have your cable internet or cable broadband, and it uses your standard or cable TV infrastructure for high-speed internet. I'm going to explain what the infrastructure really is in the coming video. There is fiber internet that uses light signals, which are transmitted through those optic fibers, and that's how we provide extremely high speed and low latency. And those light signals are actually um, transmitted or sent through the network as pulses of light, and which travel through uh, glass or plastic optical fiber. And then there is your wireless broadband systems, right? And there is a number of them. There's like 4G, LTE, there's 5G, your fixed wireless access, as well as your satellite internet as well. So each and every technology, since um, highlighting all these broadband technologies, each and every technology uh, has or it has these broadband principles or it satisfies these broadband principles of wide bandwidth and high data transmission. And in the next video, I'll be talking more about these broadband technologies in detail. See you next time.